The massive, crystalline dome of the Galactic Council Station floated silently in the void between star systems. Inside its gleaming halls, representatives from dozens of civilized species gathered in their most sacred chamber. The air itself seemed heavy with failure and desperation. Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrians stood at the center podium. His tall, elegant form, draped in ceremonial robes that shimmered like starlight. His pale blue skin had lost its usual glow, and his large, dark eyes held a sadness that spoke of too many defeats. Around him, the other council members sat in their designated areas, each species maintaining the careful protocols that had governed galactic politics for over 1,000 years. My fellow delegates, Veltar began, his melodic voice carrying easily through the chamber's perfect acoustics. I bring news from the outer territories. The Vorthok Empire has struck again. Collective stillness fell over the assembly. Even the Keplerians, whose insectoid nature made them naturally restless, froze in their seats. The Kepler colonies in the 7th sector, Veltar continued, pausing to let the words sink in. 3 billion souls, gone, entire worlds reduced to ash and silence. The Altarian delegate, her translucent form flickering with distress, spoke first. How many does that make now? How many worlds have we lost to their barbarism? 47 star systems, replied General Vexim of the Draconian Defense Corps, his scaled hide darkening with anger. 47 civilized worlds home to over 30 billion beings. All because we refuse to abandon our principles. Council Prime Zathara, the ancient leader whose species had founded the Galactic Alliance, raised one delicate hand for silence. Her form was small compared to most species present, but her authority was absolute. We do not abandon our principles, General. That is what separates us from the Vorthok. We fight with honor, we protect the innocent, and we respect the rules of civilized warfare. And where has that gotten us? General Vexim demanded, his voice rising. 70 years of retreat. 70 years of watching them burn world after world, while we play by rules they mock. The chamber erupted in debate. The Zephyrians argued for diplomatic solutions, their peaceful nature rebelling against any suggestion of brutality. The Keplerians, having lost the most colonies, demanded immediate action. The Altarians, ever the mediators, tried to find middle ground that satisfied no one. Zethara allowed the argument to continue for several minutes before calling for order. Enough, she said softly, but her voice carried through the chamber like a thunderclap. We all know our current strategies have failed. The question is, what do we do now? We need new ideas, suggested Ambassador Krelder of the Unified Worlds. New approaches. Our military doctrines are thousands of years old. Perhaps they are no longer adequate. You speak of changing our fundamental nature, Veltar protested. These doctrines represent the very essence of civilization. Without them, we become no better than the Vorthok themselves. Better dead than dishonored? General Vexim asked sarcastically. Tell that to the 3 billion souls who died yesterday. The debate might have continued indefinitely, but Zathara had been thinking. She had been alive for over 600 years, had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. On all that time, she had never encountered a problem that couldn't be solved through careful thought and proper application of established principles. There is another option, she said slowly. Something we have not considered. The chamber fell silent, all attention focused on their ancient leader. There is a young species in the Outer Rim, she continued. Recently achieved spaceflight. They call themselves humans, from a world they name Earth. They have requested membership in our alliance several times. Humans. Veltar's eyebrows rose in surprise. Those primitive creatures? They've barely left their home system. Their technology is crude, their lifespan short, their understanding of galactic politics non-existent. Precisely, Zethara replied. They are unencumbered by our traditions, our limitations, our refined approaches to conflict. Perhaps fresh eyes might see solutions we have missed. The suggestion was met with skepticism. The humans were known to the Council, but only as a curiosity. They had achieved faster-than-light travel only recently. Their ships were primitive by galactic standards, and their society seemed chaotic and divided. What could they possibly offer? Asked the Altarian delegate. They have no significant military, no advanced weapons, no experience with interstellar warfare. They have fought Zethera, said quietly. Our preliminary surveys show they have extensive experience with conflict, perhaps too much experience. Fighting among themselves hardly qualifies them for galactic warfare, General Dexim scoffed. Does it not? Zethera challenged. Every species here achieved interstellar flight through cooperation and unity. These humans reached the stars while still divided into hundreds of competing factions. They have turned conflict into an art form. The debate continued for hours, but gradually opinion began to shift. The council was desperate, their options exhausted. Perhaps it was time to try something different, something unprecedented. When the vote was finally called, it was unanimous. Earth would be contacted. The humans would be invited to join the fight against the Vorthok Empire. None of them realized. They were about to unleash something that would change the galaxy forever. The human shuttle looked tiny. Against the massive docking bay of the Galactic Council Station, Admiral Kimdeho stepped through the airlock, his military boots echoing on the polished crystal floor. At 53 years old, his face showed the lines of someone who had seen too many battles. His dark uniform was simple compared to the flowing robes and ornate decorations of the alien delegates waiting to greet him. Behind him, Commander Park Soman followed closely, her sharp eyes already scanning the alien technology around them. She held a small tablet, quickly taking notes about everything she saw. The docking bay was beautiful, all smooth curves and glowing lights, but something bothered her. Admiral, she whispered in Korean, look at their ships. Deho glanced at the alien vessels lined up in the bay. They were works of art, sleek and graceful, with surfaces that seemed to shimmer in the artificial light. But Park was right to be concerned. The ships looked fragile, almost decorative. Where's their armor? She continued quietly. Those holes look like they're made of glass. The welcoming committee approached them. Ambassador Veltar led the group, his tall blue form moving with liquid grace. Behind him came representatives from a dozen other species, each more exotic than the last. They all seemed so ... delicate. Welcome, Admiral Kim, Veltar said, his voice musical and pleasant. We are honored by your presence. The Council is eager to hear what humanity can contribute to our cause. Deho bowed respectfully. The honor is ours, Ambassador. My people are grateful for this opportunity to serve alongside the civilized species of the galaxy. As they walked through the station's corridors, Park continued making notes. The walls were transparent in places, showing the vast star field beyond. Everything was open, elegant, and beautiful. It was also completely undefended. No blast doors, she muttered under her breath. No defensive positions. This place is a death trap. The strategy meeting took place in a large chamber filled with holographic displays. The alien officers presented their current battle plans with obvious pride. Deho studied the displays carefully, his expression growing more confused with each passing minute. Your engagement protocols, he said finally, pointing to a section of the tactical display. You announce your attacks in advance? Of course, Veltar replied, seeming surprised by the question. Honor demands fair warning. We send notification to enemy forces 24 hours before any major engagement. Park leaned forward in her chair. And what about civilian populations? During orbital bombardment? The question caused a stir among the aliens. Veltar's blue skin seemed to pale even further. Civilians, he repeated, as if the word was foreign. We do not target non-combatants. Such acts would be ... barbaric. Lieutenant Lee Minho, the human intelligence officer, cleared his throat. He was young, barely 30, but his mind was sharp. What about supply lines? Industrial targets? Infrastructure? We engage only military vessels in designated battle? Zones, Council Prime Zethera explained patiently. This is how civilized species conduct warfare. We meet our enemies in open space, with honor and dignity. The human officers exchanged glances. Admiral Deho's weathered face showed no emotion, but his dark eyes were troubled. You fight? Like a sport, he said slowly. We fight with honor, General Dexim corrected, his scaled hide shifting color slightly. We do not butcher innocents or destroy civilian infrastructure. We are not animals. But the Vorthok Commander, Park said, consulting her tablet. They don't follow these rules, do they? No, Veltar admitted, his voice heavy with sadness. They are barbarians. They attack without warning, target civilians, destroy entire worlds. It is why we must stop them. And you've been fighting them for 70 years, Li Minho observed, using these same tactics. Yes, Zethra said proudly. We have never compromised our principles. You've been losing for 70 years, Deho said quietly. The chamber fell silent. The alien officers looked uncomfortable, but none of them challenged the statement. We have suffered setbacks, General Vexim said finally. But we maintain our honor. Park looked up from her tablet. What about prisoners? Of war? Do you take prisoners? Of course, Veltar said. We treat all captives with dignity and respect. We provide medical care, adequate food, and comfortable quarters, and intelligence gathering, Li Minho asked. We would never torture or coerce information from prisoners, Zethra said, looking horrified. Such methods are beneath us. Deho nodded slowly, though his expression remained troubled. I see. And your weapons? Precise and clean, General Dexum said with pride. Minimal collateral damage. We target only military assets. What about area denial weapons? Mines? Traps? Such devices are indiscriminate, Veltar explained. They could harm innocents. The meeting continued for hours, but the pattern was clear. The aliens fought with rules, traditions, and honor codes that had been developed over thousands of years. They were civilized, dignified, and completely unprepared for an enemy that didn't share their values. When the meeting ended, they assigned humanity a small sector on the rim of the conflict zone. It was clear they expected minimal impact from these primitive newcomers. As the humans returned to their quarters, Park shook her head. They're going to lose, she said quietly. Yes, Deho agreed, unless we change the rules. The human destroyer Soul's Pride drifted silently through the asteroid field near the Centauri Junction. Captain Yoon Jae-woo stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. 3 weeks had passed since the humans joined the Galactic Alliance, and this was their first real test. Contact, reported Lieutenant Kimbora from the sensor. Station 5 Vorthok ships, heavy cruiser class, moving toward the mining colonies. Yoon nodded calmly. He was a quiet man, known for his patience and careful planning. But behind his mild expression was the mind of someone who had fought in 3 different wars on Earth. Signaled the fleet. All ships moved to intercept the human. Task force consisted of 6 vessels, small by galactic standards, but fast and deadly. They had been modified with Earth's technology that the aliens didn't understand. Weapons that could adapt, armor that could repair itself, and most importantly, crews that thought differently about war. Sir, called Lieutenant Commander Osujin. From the communications station, the Vorthok are following standard approach patterns. They're not even trying to hide. Yoon almost smiled. The Vorthok were used to fighting the council races, who announced their attacks and met them in open battle. They had no idea what was coming. Open channels on all frequencies, Yoon ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of the lead Vorthok vessel. The commander was a massive creature, easily 3 meters tall, with scales that gleamed like black metal. His yellow eyes burned with arrogance as he looked at the human captain. Vorthok vessels, Yoon said in a conversational tone. This is Captain Yoon of the Human Defense Force. Your ships are surrounded. Surrender now, or we'll show you what happens when you threaten our friends. The Vorthok commander threw back his head and laughed, a sound like grinding stone. You dare threaten us, mammals? We are the masters of this galaxy. We have crushed every pathetic species that dared to oppose us. We will. The transmission cut off abruptly, Lieutenant Commander. Oh had been waiting for her cue. Her fingers flew over her console, launching a coordinated cyber attack that had been impossible against the crude electronics the Vorthok were used to facing. Their communication systems died first, then their targeting computers, then their navigation. All ships attack pattern Delta, Yoon ordered quietly. The human fleet exploded into motion. Instead of the formal battle lines that galactic warfare demanded, they scattered like leaves in a storm. Each ship moved independently, using the asteroids for cover, approaching from unexpected angles. The Vorthok had never seen anything like it. Their massive vessels were designed for the kind of warfare the Council practiced, ship-to-ship combat in open space with both sides following established rules. They were not prepared for enemies that hid behind rocks and attacked from 6 directions at once. They're not following proper engagement protocols, shrieked the Vorthok tactical officer as human fighters dove through their defensive lines. Like angry wasps. The small craft were too fast and too unpredictable for the Vorthok's heavy weapons to track Captain Yoon. Watch the battle unfold with the calm of a man who had seen war's true face. The human ships worked together like a pack of wolves, each one covering the others, striking at weak points, never giving the enemy time to recover. Direct hit on their command vessel, reported Lieutenant Kim. They're trying to retreat. Don't let them, Yoon said simply. The human ships pursued relentlessly. There would be no escape, no regrouping, no chance to warn other Vorthok fleets. About these new tactics, the destroyers unleashed their full firepower weapons that had been designed to fight other humans. Creatures who knew every trick of war. Within 2 hours, the Vorthok fleet was debris floating in the void. No survivors. No prisoners. No honor. Lieutenant Commander O monitored the galactic communication networks as news of the engagement spread. The Council races transmitted the battle recordings with a mixture of awe and horror. The humans had achieved in hours what the Allied fleets had failed to do in decades. "Sir," she reported, "we're receiving congratulations from the Council." "They're impressed." You nodded, but his expression remained troubled. He had seen the battle recordings from the Council's previous engagements. Their enemies were brutal, yes, but they still fought with a kind of primitive honor. They declared their attacks. They took prisoners. They had rules. The humans had rules too, but they were different rules. Rules learned from thousands of years of fighting each other, of total war, of conflicts where the only choice was victory or extinction. "Set course for the next patrol sector," Yoon ordered, "and send a message to Admiral Kim. Tell him the Vorthok are not prepared for human warfare." As the Soul's Pride moved away from the debris field, the crew worked quietly at their stations. They had done their job, protected the innocent, and eliminated a threat. But there was no celebration, no sense of triumph. They were soldiers, and they knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was about to learn what humans really were when they went to war, and that knowledge would change everything. The reports arrived at the Galactic Council station every few hours, each one more disturbing than the last. Ambassador Veltar sat in his private chamber, reviewing the latest intelligence briefings with growing unease. His elegant blue fingers trembled slightly as he scrolled through the data on his holographic display. Sector 7 engagement complete. He read aloud to the empty room. Colonel Nam Taesung's forces have eliminated entire Vorthok supply network. No enemy survivors. Human casualties, minimal. The next report made his stomach turn. Major Choi Hoojin's battalion has captured Vorthok weapons depot. Enemy weapons now being used against Vorthok forces. Psychological impact, devastating. But it was the third report that truly horrified him. Commander Seo Jahoon's fleet executed tactical retreat, pursuing Vorthok forces into asteroid field. Hidden human reinforcements emerged from concealment. Enemy fleet destroyed. Duration of engagement, 47 minutes. Beltar closed, his eyes trying to process what he was reading. In 3 months, human forces had achieved more victories than the Council had managed in 3 decades. But the methods. The methods were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. He made his way to the Council archives, a vast library containing the histories of every member species. The human section was small, recently added, but what he found there made his blood run cold. The first document he opened was labeled World War II. As he read, his horror grew. 100 million dead. Entire cities destroyed in single attacks. Weapons that could kill hundreds of thousands in seconds. This was just one conflict among many. Impossible, he whispered. But the evidence was undeniable. The humans had fought wars that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever known. They had developed weapons that could destroy planets, then somehow managed not to use them on each other. He found records of something called the Cold War, a decades-long conflict where two human factions had pointed world-ending weapons at each other and somehow maintained peace through fear alone. The psychological complexity of it was staggering, but it was the smaller conflicts that truly frightened him. Wars over territory, resources, ideology, religion. The humans had fought constantly for their entire recorded history. They had turned killing into science, strategy into art, and warfare into their natural state. "Council Prime," he called out, activating his communication system. "Must see this!" Cythera arrived within minutes, her ancient form moving with unusual haste. "What is it, Veltar? You look like you've seen a ghost?" "Worse," he replied, gesturing to the holographic displays surrounding them. "I've seen what we've unleashed." He showed her the human historical records, watching her expression change from curiosity to shock to horror. They spent hours reading together, discovering the true nature of their new allies. "They call their current deployment a peacekeeping mission," Veltar whispered, pointing to a human military document. "Look at their casualty projections. They expect to lose thousands of their own people and consider it acceptable." Cythera's face was pale. "How many of their own soldiers do they think will die?" 12,000. Veltar read from the report. "In what they consider a minor operation?" The Council Prime was quiet for a long moment. "We lose 12 soldiers in a major engagement and hold memorial services. They plan to lose 12,000 and call it routine." More reports arrived as they watched. The Vorthok Empire, which had terrorized the galaxy for over a century, was retreating on every front. Their commanders were sending increasingly desperate messages to anyone who would listen. "We need to see these transmissions," Cythera said. The intercepted Vorthok communications were terrifying in their desperation. The first message they reviewed came from Admiral Grector, a veteran commander who had destroyed dozens of worlds. "Council forces," his voice crackled through the speakers. "We must speak. These humans, they are not like you. They do not fight with honor. They strike from shadows, use our own weapons against us, show no mercy to prisoners." The second transmission was even more disturbing. "These humans," the voice was different, younger, filled with fear. "They do not fight like civilized beings. They fight like demons. They seem to enjoy the killing. We cannot defeat them." A third message, from the Vorthok Supreme Commander himself, was perhaps the most shocking of all. "We are willing to negotiate. We will withdraw from all contested systems. We will pay reparations. Just keep the humans away from us." The Vorthok, who had never retreated, never negotiated, never shown fear, were begging for mercy. "What have we done?" Cythera whispered. Veltar pulled up another human historical document.
Look at this.
They call it the Geneva Convention. Rules for warfare, designed to protect prisoners and civilians. "That sounds reasonable," Cythera said hopefully. "Read further?" Veltar replied grimly. "They had to create these rules because their wars were so brutal that they horrified themselves. And even with these rules, they still fight in ways that make the Vorthok seem gentle." More reports came in. Human forces were advancing on all fronts, using tactics that no one had ever seen. They turned the Vorthok's own brutality against them, but with a precision and efficiency that was terrifying. "We wanted them to help us win," Cythera said quietly. "We didn't realize we were asking them to show us what winning really means." The galaxy was changing. The Vorthok were retreating, but something worse was taking their place. An ally that was more dangerous than any enemy they had ever faced, and the humans were just getting started. The war ended on a Tuesday. Admiral Kim Dae-ho received the message while standing on the bridge of his flagship, watching the last Vorthok stronghold burn in the distance. 18 months. That was all it had taken to destroy an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for over a century. Sir Lieutenant Kim Bora reported from her station, receiving surrender transmissions from all remaining Vorthok forces. "They're requesting immediate ceasefire." Dae-ho nodded quietly. Around him, the bridge crew continued their work without celebration. They had seen too much, done too much, to feel joy in victory. The war was over, but the cost had been higher than anyone expected. The Vorthok homeworld was a wasteland now. Their mighty fleets were scattered debris floating in space. Their colonies had been abandoned. Their people fled to the Outer Rim, where they begged for mercy from species they had once enslaved. The empire that had seemed unstoppable was broken completely. But something else had been broken too: the galaxy's faith in civilization itself. 2 weeks later, Deho stood in the grand chambers of the Galactic Council Station. The room was filled with representatives from dozens of species, all gathered to honor the humans who had saved them. The walls were decorated with victory banners, and the air hummed with the sound of celebration. Yet the atmosphere was strange, cold, fearful. Deho wore his dress uniform, the dark blue fabric covered with medals from grateful worlds. Commander? Park Soman stood beside him, her own uniform similarly decorated. Behind them, a small group of human officers represented the thousands who had fought and died in the war. Council Prime Zathera approached the podium, her ancient form moving slowly. When she spoke, her voice carried to every corner of the chamber, but the words felt rehearsed, careful. On behalf of the Galactic Council, she began, we thank humanity for its decisive contribution to our victory. Your courage and determination have saved countless worlds from destruction. Polite applause echoed through the chamber, but Deho noticed how the alien delegates avoided looking directly at the humans. Their eyes held a mixture of gratitude and terror. However, Ambassador Veltar continued, stepping forward. We believe it would be best if human forces remained within their designated sectors. For the peace and stability of the galaxy, the words hung in the air like a death sentence. Deho felt Park tense beside him, but he remained calm. They had been expecting this, you understand, he replied simply, his voice carrying no emotion. We'll return to our space. The relief in the chamber was visible. Shoulders relaxed, breathing became easier, and for the first time since the humans had arrived, the aliens seemed comfortable. But Deho saw the shame in their eyes too. They were grateful, yes, but they were also horrified by what they had witnessed. The humans had won their war, but in doing so, they had revealed something about themselves that the galaxy found disturbing. The formal ceremony continued for another hour, but the real message was clear. The humans were being politely exiled, sent back to their corner of space where they could be contained and forgotten. As the human fleet prepared to depart, Deho walked through the station's corridors one last time. Everywhere he went, conversations stopped when he appeared. Aliens who had fought beside human forces now looked at him with fear. He understood their reaction. They had seen the battle recordings, read the reports, witnessed the efficiency with which humans waged war. They had learned that humanity's greatest strength was also their greatest curse. They refused to accept defeat, no matter the cost. The journey back to human space took 3 weeks. As they traveled, reports came in from across the galaxy. The Vorthok survivors were being treated with kindness, given new homes on peaceful worlds. The same mercy that had been denied to them during their reign of terror is now freely offered, but the humans received no such kindness. They were heroes. Yes, but heroes who reminded everyone of the darkness that victory sometimes required. Commander Park found Deho in his quarters on the final night of their journey, staring out at the stars through the large viewport. Any regrets? She asked quietly. Deho was silent for a long moment. We saved them, he said finally. We stopped the Vorthok, and now they're afraid of us. They should be afraid, Deho replied. We're not like them. We never were. Park nodded, understanding. The other species had evolved past their violent nature, had learned to fight with honor and restraint. Humanity had taken a different path, had kept their capacity for total war, even as they reached for the stars. What happens now? She asked. Deho smiled grimly, still looking out at the vast emptiness of space. Now we go home. We rebuild. We wait. Wait for what? For the next time they need monsters to fight their wars. The human fleet continued its journey back to Earth, leaving behind a galaxy that would never again underestimate them. They had proved that sometimes the only way to defeat evil was to become something worse. The galaxy was safe, but the price had been their place among the civilized worlds. Some species, Deho reflected, were meant to stand apart. Humanity had always been alone among the stars, and perhaps that was how it should be. The war was over. But the isolation had just begun.